What's up, guys? If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am now prepping for a strongman show. And I want to be clear up front that this doesn't mean I'm going all in on strongman. I'm not making that commitment yet. But I do think it'll be fun. It'll help me get to the monotony of a bodybuilding off season. And I do think it'll set me up well for whatever I decide to do in the future, because general athleticism is probably an area that I'm lacking in with regard to any strength sport, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, strongman, whatever. Now, recently on my stories, I posted the PED cycle that I will be running, and Instagram flagged that as promoting the use of illegal drugs, which I guess is fair, also kind of shitty. But from now on, I will be discussing all of my PED stuff on YouTube instead, because Google is slightly better when it comes to that form of censorship. So I'm going to go through the cycle that I'll be running, and I'm going to explain why I'm doing what. And I want to make clear up front that this is not medical advice. This is just my experience, what I'm doing, and why I'm choosing to do it. I'm not telling you to do any of these things. So the cycle itself is 500 milligrams of testosterone. That's the only anabolic I'm running. I'll explain why later. I'm also using 3 IUs of GH a day, 40 milligrams of telmisartan, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong. It's a blood pressure medication, 500 milligrams of metformin, and 500 milligrams of metformin, 5 milligrams of Adderall, only on my heaviest training days. Those are the only prescription medications I'll be using. I do have prescriptions for all of those medications, not necessarily in those doses, to be totally clear, but I do have prescriptions for them all. And I will be using over-the-counter supplements as well, which I think is pretty obvious. So, discussing the cycle. First of all, 500 milligrams of testosterone. So I've discussed in the past when training for strength sports that A, I don't think you need a ton of PEDs in order to do well, and B, that I have trouble staying in a weight class, and I will be definitely going 231 for this show because I have no desire to try to move fast at 275. I'm 5'8", it would be very painful. So 500 milligrams of testosterone is about the most that I can run without having to worry about my weight. Over that, I would probably be pushing the mid 250s. And while I could definitely do a weight cut to 231, that's not something that I want to do at this point in my career. I have done, I think my biggest weight cut before was 46 pounds in a week. And that's not smart, not healthy, not something I'm going to do again. So staying around, 247, 250 is my goal for the next 9 weeks of prep. And 500 milligrams of test is going to keep me at that range. Now, I may add in 150 milligrams of DECA at some point in the prep if I find that joints get to be an issue. I would not go over that. I don't think it's necessary for the joint benefits. And it would make it harder for me to maintain my weight. But at the same time, I know that once I'm getting back into the strength work, my joints are going to take a beating. And if that's something that I need to maintain my quality of life, it will do it. I am at the point in my strength career where I don't really need more static strength, right? I'm not going to lose a deadlift event at 231 unless it's the, John Hack. It's conventional with straps. Like, I can hang with anybody in the world. That's just kind of how it is. My overhead pressing technique obviously needs a lot of work, but in terms, again, of static strength, what's there for my shoulders, my triceps, it's sufficient. The same goes for pretty much any static strength event that I'm going to come across in an amateur strongman show. Now, what I do need to improve on are things like my speed, my balance, my coordination, all those things, my lift specific technique, all those are going to need enormous amounts of work, but the pure strength is already there. So I don't need to be running any type of androgen that's going to result in more of a strength increase than I would get from the testosterone. It's just not necessary, and it's not worth the risk to me. In particular, I want to mention that I do not like Tren for strength. If I were going to use Tren, it would probably be in the same dose as DECA, 150 milligrams max per week. And honestly, I don't know that I will ever again use Tren in my career. I just don't think that it's worth it in terms of the side effects that I get from it, mainly the insomnia, also some degree of, anxiety a little bit, which I think is pretty common on Tren. It's not really a compound that I think is useful. And if I were going to use an oral, it would be Anavar. But again, I just don't think it will be necessary for this prep. If I do decide to compete in bodybuilding or powerlifting at pro levels, I would at least need to include Anavar for sure. And then Primbalin is the other compound that I really like. Primbalin and Masteron to some extent, but again, not necessary for this show. So, you can kind of go through process of elimination. There's no need for me to be doing anabolics other than that. So the same kind of goes for the dose of GH. At this point, it's more for longevity, quality of life, improvements in skin, sleep, maybe a little bit of improvement in fat loss. Not that that's an issue for me. The three I use is honestly kind of a cruise dose for me at this point. And again, I don't think that I would ever blast over, I don't know, 8 IUs. I've never gone over 8 IUs. I'm not sure I would ever do more than that, but certainly not for a strongman competition. I don't think it would have any benefit in that regard. If anything, the increased water retention would make it more difficult to make weight and probably make it more difficult for me to move quickly as well. Now, as far as the other medications go, telmisartan obviously helps to control blood pressure. I don't have concerning blood pressure issues without the use of the drug. My blood pressure, the top number, shit, I should know what that one is usually around my blood pressure is usually 130/80, which is not great, right? So there is some benefit to including that drug as a preventative measure. It's also not terrible, but telmisartan does have a number of beneficial side effects, I guess you could call them. And you can see those on the list here. So that is something that I include year round, not only as kind of a health improving drug, but also as a performance improving drug. The same goes for metformin, right? So the typical use of metformin is to control blood glucose levels, keep them at healthy levels, especially in diabetics. My blood glucose levels are normally perfectly fine. I don't use exogenous insulin. I have before in the past at very low amounts. It's not something I plan on ever doing again. And if I do, it would be very low amounts, and it would be filling out, after weighing in for a show, whether it's a meet or bodybuilding, whatever. So, there's probably not a major health need for me to be using metformin, but again, it does have a lot of tangential benefits that I think are worth including. And again, looking at my A1C, it's not out of range, but it's at the top end of normal. And so there's definitely some case to be made for using it as a preventative measure as well. And then lastly, the Adderall. I find that I get a enormous boost from stimulants. And in particular, if I use large amounts of caffeine, then again, I do get some anxiety from that, which I think is very, very common. The benefit of the Adderall for me is that if I do get a little anxious because of my caffeine intake prior to a heavy lift, that helps me stay focused regardless. It also tends to improve my mood and concentration regardless of whether I'm in the gym or outside of the gym. So by including it on heavy days, I'm able to just step my mental game up a little bit. And 5 milligrams is the dose that I'm prescribed for every day. I don't use that every day. Again, I only use it on the heavy training days because I can get fine perfectly well without it. But I do find that it benefits me. Now, in terms of over-the-counter stimulants, besides caffeine, which I really don't like to take over, 400 milligrams max per day. If I need a boost on top of that, I will use some type of ephedrine, which is over-the-counter. But I really try to avoid that, not so much because of the health consequences. It can, increase blood pressure dramatically, but more because I get such a boost from it that I have an extraordinarily difficult time recovering, right? So if I use ephedrine and I'm able to crank out, 2 more reps on a set of max deadlifts, I'm going to be really wiped out. So I haven't used either of those compounds in training since my powerlifting meet in September. So any of the lifts that you've seen me done, I have not used any stimulants for that. It's just not worth it for me in the off season, but in prep, if needed, then I would add them in. In terms of over-the-counter supplements, I use a pump supplement because I think it's fun. I use an intra-workout. That's the only supplement that I think is absolutely necessary for anyone. I'm currently using one from First Form, which is great. Granite has a great one, and I've talked before on this channel about making your own from True Nutrition. So all those are great options. I do feel like intra-workout is an essential supplement. Then fish oil for cholesterol levels. Cholesterol is maybe not the best indicator of, heart health, but at the same time, it's good to keep that under control. And over-the-counter supplements, that might be about it. The pump one I have has creatine in it, so I don't take that separately. Oh, I'm sure there's another. I've stopped aminos just because, I mainly use them for getting more water in, and instead I'm just drinking Crystal Light like right now. I'm just kind of in the mood. And I can't think of any other, protein powder, if you count that as a supplement. But that covers it for all of the over-the-counter and prescription medications that I'll be taking for this prep. And I am fully confident that that will be more than enough to place well and to perform and to improve if you consider this part of my bodybuilding off season. So in the comments below, if you have any questions for me regarding my own supplement use, feel free to ask away. I am not going to answer any questions about other people's supplement use. That is not something that I feel comfortable doing. First of all, I don't have the level of knowledge that other people do. And second of all, the potential downsides are too great for me to feel comfortable doing that. So if you need help with your supplement protocol, you can either contact Merrick Health, that's who I go through for doctor supervision, or you can contact Joe Jeffries, which is who I go to for help designing my own protocols like this one. So I've included their contact information in the description below. And again, I'm not going to answer any questions. If you have those questions, you talk to those people. So that kind of covers it. I hope you found this video helpful. I will be doing more of these, and for in the future, any PED related questions that I get on Instagram, I will be answering here as well, just because I'm not willing to risk having my account shut down. I'll be honest, I think it's bullshit what Instagram does, but at the same time, I choose to use that platform, so it's something that I have to abide by.